Hello folks, and welcome to the first ever episode of Talking Tabletop. Today we are going to be exploring the world of Warhammer 40K, and we're going to be looking specifically at Combat Patrol Space Marines. Now, when we look at Combat Patrol Space Marines, the box set currently on sale in the shops would be Strike Force Octavius. Now, Strike Force Octavius is designed for tough, close-range battles. Now, that's whether you're fighting in a ruined city, dense jungle, or even in a Space Hulk. These warriors are designed to excel at precision strikes and holding ground under heavy fire. They combine durability, firepower, and elite melee prowess to overwhelm even the fiercest foes. Now that sounds exactly like a propaganda poster from the Imperium of Man. Obviously, Strike Force Octavius is featuring the Space Marines, the poster boys of Warhammer 40k, and in most cases, the Space Marines, they're a pretty staple, diet in terms of what you'll see in Warhammer 40k. And yeah, they have their uses, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, just like any. But that is what we are planning on exploring today. Now, if we move on to the actual unit breakdown of our box set, we start off with Captain Octavius. Now, he features as the Warlord unit in this box set, and he is our head honcho, right? Now, he is built to lead from the front, okay? He is equipped with Terminator armor, Stormbolter, and a relic weapon as well. He is designed to take on anything from enemy characters up to vehicles as well. Now, in terms of some of the key mechanics here, just to keep you in the loop as we go forward, and I'll try my best to try and fill in the blanks. If there's anything I missed, by all means, put it in the comments, ask questions, and I will do my very best to either follow it up in a future video, or I will go over it in the questions and answers. So, if we talk about a Stormbolter, it is your quite powerful weapon in terms of what Marines can carry. It's got rapid fire 2, so that means it ranges of less than or equal to 12 inches, as its maximum range is 24. This weapon doubles its shots, so it's normally got 2 shots or 2 attacks against a target. That means we can actually roll 4 attacks. Now, when you look at who's equipped with it, it's our Terminator squad and our captains, etc. Our captain here has a ballistic skill of 2+, so that means Octavius is incredibly accurate, meaning that if you roll 2 or more, then that Stormbolter will hit, and as a result will inflict 2 hits on the opponent and potentially 2 wounds under normal circumstances. His relic weapon is a melee weapon that hits at strength 5, AP -2, and deals 2 damage per hit, making it effective against infantry and light vehicles. Now again, strength 5 is kind of middle of the road in terms of the strength of a weapon. The AP -2 though is important because when we apply that to wound rolls, when the opponent is resolving those wounds, it means that their wound rolls have to be 2 higher than they would have normally been. So quite effective there when he gets into melee damage. He also carries the ability Champion Duelist, which gives his melee attacks the precision and lethal hits keywords. Now, precision means that it allows him to target enemy characters, even if they're protected by a bodyguard unit. So that is perfect if you are trying to get him into the mix to take out leaders in other armies and, as a result, get rid of their benefits to the squads they are leading. So he can specifically target an enemy leader, which is really useful when you get down to it. Now, the lethal hits, again, any unmodified 6 roll will automatically wound the target, and that therefore bypasses toughness checks and is great for dealing with high toughness enemies like Tyranids or Necrons. Now, again, if you think about what I've said previously, he has a strength 5 attack with the relic weapon, but what we're saying here is if he rolls a 6, it's almost a bit like D&D. You're rolling that 20, it's an automatic hit and wound, which is extremely useful when engaging in these small-scale skirmishes. So overall, when we look at Captain Octavius, there are some pros and cons. The pros are that he's great for hunting characters. He's extremely durable with a 2+ armor save and a 4+ invulnerable save. Now, invulnerable save meaning that even if somebody was to hit him with an armor-piercing weapon, the maximum that he would ever need to roll beyond is a 4+. It can't go any further than that, one of the benefits of an invulnerable save. However, you would be hoping for the 2+ armor save to increase your odds of actually making sure that you roll the save from wounds. He's got excellent synergy with his squad as a leader unit, and we will talk about that later on in the video. In terms of cons, He has a limited ranged damage because of his Stormbolter, obviously 24 inches. It's not far, and his movement speed is quite slow as well due to his heavy Terminator armour. To put it in context, for anyone who's not familiar with Terminators in the Warhammer 40k universe, Terminators are in essence tanks. They are walking tanks, and as a result, they do not walk or move very quickly. So there are some cons to this unit as well. This then takes us on to talk about Librarian Tantus. Now, Librarian Tantus is our psychic support within our unit, and he is a psychic powerhouse, for want of a better description. He's armed with a Stormbolter and a Force Weapon, again, similar to Octavius in terms of what he is actually equipped with. However, he also has some additional things we need to think about. Now, in terms of Librarians, because of their psychic abilities, he has a psychic power called Smite, and this is a Witchfire power which deals mortal wounds, meaning that any wounds inflicted are mortal. They cannot be negated. They are automatic wounds. Now, roll a 2d6 when you're using that ability, and if the result is 5 or more, the nearest enemy takes d3 mortal wounds. So on an 11 plus, it becomes a Super Smite for d6 damage. Mortal wounds ignore armour, making the power a reliable way to hurt tough units. He also has a psychic power called Veil of Time, and this is actually applied when you grant the unit sustained hits. He would apply this to a unit or his bodyguard unit that he's leading. Sustained hits means that every unmodified 6 to hit generates an additional hit. So anytime you roll that natural 6, you're going to also get another hit inflicted, so effectively double your hits. This can lead to a devastating volley when combined with Stormbolters, and if leading the Terminators as well, there is a Terminator later on that carries an assault cannon that actually hits with a volley of 6 attacks. If you think 6 sixes, then we are going to be hitting with quite a lot there. That's potential of 12 hits from one single weapon. If we were to maximise that, when you take in the Stormbolters into account, that is then going to be even higher because they get the same benefit. It is shared over the entire unit. Additionally, he carries a Force Weapon, which is a psychic weapon, and in this box set he carries a Force Axe. And in melee, its strength is 6, so you can actually see it's slightly higher than the relic weapon of Captain Octavius. It's got an AP of -1, and it deals d3 damage per hit, making it very versatile against a range of targets. Also means that it has a maximum of 3 wounds that it could actually inflict if successful in getting through an opponent's defences. Now, in terms of the pros and cons of the Librarian unit, we can say that, in terms of pros, he can deal mortal wounds, bypassing armour saves. He enhances nearby units with these different buffs, and he's versatile in both shooting and melee combat as well, which is really useful. The cons, again, he is more fragile compared to other leaders that we will find in other box sets, and he is limited to 1 psychic power per turn. Now, that being said though, still fairly effective in what he does. We then move on to talk about our next part of our squad, and that will be our Terminator squad, which is really the core of our army here. Now, Terminators, again, the iconic backbone of the Space Marines in Warhammer 40k. Everyone recognises them. They feature in all the games. They're in Space Hulk, everything. Terminators are very easily recognisable. They are tough and they are versatile, and that is why they are the backbone of this combat patrol. If the Terminators fall, this combat patrol will not do very well going forward. So, key mechanics. In terms of Terminators, again, we have got equipped with Stormbolters with Rapid Fire 2. So again, like the Captains, but on all 5 Terminators at close range, 12 inches, that is a potential of 20 shots from that unit alone into your enemy. Now, if you are facing a lot of squishy targets, such as Tyranids, Termagants, things like that, you are going to be inflicting heavy damage and heavy unit losses on them from those rolls. Power Fist, again, they have a strength of 8 and an AP of -2, and they deal 2 damage, okay? As a result, weapon skills from the Terminators, they are 3+, so, you're actually doing pretty well there. And the Power Fist, your Terminators really are looking at you want to get them into the mix. You want to get them into melee combat as quickly as possible, probably alongside Captain Octavius, in order to maximise the damage you're inflicting and the wounds that you're inflicting on any heavier or elite infantry units. Again, there's the assault cannon, which I mentioned previously. It's a heavy hitter. It hits 6 shots at strength 6, and any 6s wound inflict devastating wounds, meaning that they will convert to mortal wounds. So again, that is what we are going for. In terms of abilities for the Terminators, they have Deep Strike, which is available in the core rules, and that means that they can deploy anywhere on the board more than 9 inches from enemy models. This allows for tactical flexibility, and you can bring these models into play anywhere beyond round 1 of the game. So you could deploy them in round 1, or you could hold them back, see how things unfold, and then deploy them to really maximise their impact. They also have an ability called Fury of the First. Now, this also gives you a +1 hit against your Oath of Moment target as well. So, Fury of the First, very useful. Pros and cons, we have got plenty to think about here with the Terminator squad. Now, in terms of Terminators again, Fury of the First does actually state on the flavour text that each time a model in this unit makes an attack that attacks the Oath of Moment target, which is a faction-specific power, and we will talk about that again in a wee bit, it adds 1 to the hit roll. So again, all of your hit rolls are modified by 1, and your Oath of Moment target, when we discuss it, there's an added bonus there as well. So in terms of pros and cons, our Terminators are extremely durable. They've got a 2+ save and a 4+ invulnerable save. Remember, I mentioned that before with Captain Octavius. They're excellent in both shooting and melee. There's flexible deployment there with Deep Strike as well. The cons, as I've mentioned, they are slow. They're slow movement at 5 inches. There are many models that can go at double that. And they are vulnerable to being overwhelmed by hordes, purely because as well, in terms of the number of units we are getting here in our squad, there are only 5 Terminators plus a leader unit compared to all the others that we would face in other box sets. And finally, we go into the Infernus squad, which are our flamethrower specialists. They bring the heat literally to the fight, and these Marines carry Pyre Blaster flamethrowers designed to wipe out infantry, particularly useful in a number of scenarios. Now, the Pyre Blaster is a torrent weapon and ignores cover, so it automatically hits within 12 inches. You roll d6 shots per model, and it makes them great at clearing objectives. It completely ignores cover and negates terrain bonuses. They additionally carry close combat weapons, standard melee attacks at strength 4 with no AP, dealing 1 damage. They additionally have bolt pistols, which means that they can actually shoot and cause melee damage during an attack phase. Now, the pros of those, they are automatically hitting, which makes them reliable. They're great for clearing infantry and objectives. They are effective at Overwatch, and their short range though means that they need to get close, and they do struggle against armoured targets. So overall, we've got a strike force here that's a bit of a mixed bag. Some pros, some cons, depends on how you then use them. But that's where we then go into things like our faction rules, which will then give them that competitive edge to help you win the battle and save the day. So, if we talk about a faction-defining rule, we've got Oath of Moment for the Space Marines. So at the start of your command phase, you pick a priority enemy unit, and all of your units in your strike force get to re-roll hit rolls against that target until your next turn. So this really allows you to focus down on key threats. So for example, if you imagine facing a Tyranid monster or a Necron Doomstalker, for example, designating those as your Oath of Moment target will ensure your entire army can hit with precision and maximise damage against that target. Now, if we're already in a position where we have got additional buffs at play that are giving our units additional hit rolls, additional wound rolls, devastating wounds, things like that, and mortal wounds, we are then going to start really ramping up the damage output of our force and use that to our advantage. So Oath of Moment, not to be sniffed at in terms of an ability, and ensuring that you are prioritising the correct targets is key here to ensure your success. And then we move on to look at our stratagems in detail. Okay, now let's dive into these stratagems that are available to Strike Force Octavius. Now, they access and have access to all the standard Space Marine stratagems, But in addition, they have the following three. So they have Gene Rot Resilience, which costs 1 command point, and that reduces wound rolls against your unit by 1. So for example, an enemy weapon that wounds on a 3+ now needs a 4+. Critical for keeping your Terminators alive, will keep them in the fray. We also have Veteran Instincts, which again costs 1 command point, and that means you get to reroll wounds of 1 in melee, or fully reroll against monsters and vehicles. So that means, again, if you are rolling in melee and you want to wound and cause as much damage as possible, you can reroll anything that comes in on a 1 or a fail. Again, perfect for taking on things like Scorpic Destroyers, Tyrannid Monsters, any big hitters in other teams. And the final stratagem to look at here is Duty and Honour, which again, 1 command point, and that allows a unit to hold an objective even if they move away. Now this one in itself has a lot of strategic importance, because when you're moving away from objectives, obviously you lose control of them. This allows us to then control that objective after we move away from it. And what is in the fine print is that Duty and Honour also means that it stays in your possession until taken over or captured by an enemy unit. And that means if you were to capture an objective, move off, then effectively you are keeping a hold of that and you're not having to spend that command point every turn to maintain that control as well. So really, really, really useful. So if we go kindly to the final thoughts in terms of pros and cons of this command set, or of this combat patrol, we can talk about the pros being that as a unit or as a squad, they are incredibly durable. Okay, Terminators and characters, they can take a lot of punishment before they are put down. They have precision firepower. Oath of Moment ensures key targets are getting eliminated. And you have tactical flexibility in terms of using deep strikes, psychic powers, and these offer a dynamic play style and different options depending on what you want to do with those in general use. In terms of cons, yes, because of the number of Terminator armours being used, we have slow movement. So outside the deep strike, mobility can be an issue. You're not going to cover the board quickly. It will take a while, and if you start getting pinned down and bogged down by other units, in melee, for example, you're not going to be getting from objective to objective quickly. There is a low model count, so that makes it harder to then hold multiple objectives. But again, think about Duty and Honour. That's where Duty and Honour kind of negates part of that con of the squad itself. And again, you're relying on key units here. If you lose your captain or librarian early, this can really hurt you. Now, from watching and doing a bit of research, a lot of the times when this squad is coming up against, the Necrons, for example, the Tachyon arrow is getting used almost straight away to try and eliminate a librarian, eliminate the captain, and take away those threats. And usually when that happens, the victory does not go to the Space Marines. So you've got to keep those units safe early doors, or be sensible and give them deep strike as well, because both can actually access that as well. Now, in terms of deployment and synergy within the game, we can talk about kind of general deployment tips. And again, I've talked a wee bit about deep strike and using it strategically. If you use your Terminators and your Librarian, both have the deep strike ability. They allow you to deploy anywhere as long as you're more than 9 inches from enemy models. So, hold them in reserve until turn 2 or 3. Drop them behind enemy lines or onto objectives straight away. Use them to apply pressure where your opponent is weakest or to secure vital objectives. It's the kind of why behind this is it gives you flexibility and it forces your opponent to then start to spread their forces. That reduces pressure on your Infernus squad and your captain if he's acting as a solo unit as well. Right? When you're having to spread that force, you're not getting that concentrated effort against one single unit within your team then. Okay? And again, your squad are hitting the ground and they're hitting the ground running within reason. If you're within 9 inches, you're getting your rapid fire, you're getting your shooting phase, and things like that as well. Now, in terms of different types of deployment as well, you could deploy Captain Octavius with Terminators because he has a leader unit. He can lead that squad, he has a leader keyword, and he increases their durability and their melee threat. Now, tip to this would be place them centrally or put them in a position where they can threaten multiple objectives after deep striking. The synergy benefit here is that because Captain Octavius has his champion duelist ability, and because he has unstoppable valor on his flavor text, The Unstoppable Valor basically means he can re-roll charges, okay? So that ensures that that squad are going to hit hard when they charge into combat. And again, remember what I said previously, we are coming in packing power fists, power swords. Actually, the sergeant for the Terminators has a power sword. I forgot to mention that. And yeah, Octavius himself has a relic weapon. That's a lot coming in terms of melee damage and a lot of wounds that can be inflicted on your higher value targets. Yeah, you just really want to be deploying that with deep strike and using it sensibly. The Infernus squad, again, you're looking at, in terms of strategies with them, you're going really kind of with an advance and hold strategy there. You want to deploy your Infernus squad near objectives, however, keep them behind cover. They are a bit squishier. They don't have the same level of toughness because they are not in Terminator armour. So use them to hold those mid-board objectives and deny infantry from advancing beyond those. Keep them close to the terrain for cover. That will keep them safe and protection, or give them protection, until you need to then move them up and unleash the Pyre Blasters. One of the most powerful aspects of the Infernus squad, from experience of using them, from the experience of seeing them being used, is this torrent weapon. It automatically hits. That means that if your Infernus squad are in cover, and then the infantry squad then tries to advance past them or towards them, they have the ability to then activate Overwatch from the stratagems. Now, Overwatch normally only hits on a 6+, or a 6. When we are using the Pyre Blasters, they have an automatic hit setting, so that negates the requirement for the 6. As a result, it's an automatic hit. You're then hitting with D6 damage per, or D6 hits per model. If you've got a unit of 5, that's 30 possible hits, and each one of them will also then be inflicting wounds as well. So up to 30 hits on your faster infantry, lower level infantry, and if each one of those hits carries 1 wound with it, you're talking about potentially wiping out 30 units in 1 turn. I've not seen it happen yet. Tell me if it does, please, in the comments, but you know, it could potentially happen if you roll and the rolling gods are with you. And then last one to kind of think about in terms of deployment is the placement of Librarian Tantus. So if you deploy the Librarian in the battlefield, make sure that you're keeping him within 6 inches of key units like your Terminators, and that will then leverage his Veil of Time ability. It grants sustained hits to the squad, and again, just prioritising where he can safely cast Smite while also avoiding early enemy fire. Additional bonus of Librarian Tantus as well, he can cast Smite and can shoot as well in the shooting phase, because both count as 2 different ranged weapons. So, in essence, he can actually attack twice in the shooting phase and then follow up with a charge into the melee phase. The synergy benefit, again, if you were with the Bodyguard squad there, you're going to get extra hits from sustained hits, combined well with rapid fire weapons as well. Again, you're going to then maximise the damage output, and he just buffs the squad that he's with. So, in terms of synergy within the squad or with the combat patrol, one of the main ones is the use and the effective use of Oath of Moment when you're doing almost focus fire. Oath of Moment, as mentioned, lets you pick a priority target each turn. You're going to use that to eliminate high value threats like vehicles, monsters, leader characters, warlords, anything that you think is particularly powerful. The tip here would be to designate a key enemy unit at the start of your turn, concentrate fire from all of your units, especially the Terminators and Captain Octavius. Maximise that benefit of rerolling hits in order to take that out. Now again, if you bought the Ultimate Starter set, you would get the Combat Patrol in essence for Space Marines and Tyranids. You're going to be focusing on killing key synapse creatures against Tyranids, so like the Terror of Vardengast, or against Necrons, for example, target a Canoptic Doomstalker to take away that long-range firepower from their unit. Now, Necrons will follow up in a future video. They have their own benefits and other ways around that, but the Doomstalker is one of their biggest threats when you face them when playing Combat Patrol. Again, combinations of stratagems. Use the Gene Rot Resilience with your Terminators when they face high strength weapons. That is going to save them, keep them in the fight, and allow them to dish out more damage for longer. Duty and Honour. If your Infernus squad moves off an objective, use that to maintain the control while then advancing. And then Veteran Instincts, use this when your Terminators engage an enemy monster or vehicles to ensure they are hitting as much damage with the rerolls that you get from that Veteran Instinct as well. So that's where your stratagem combinations come in. So Gene Rock Resilience, Terminators, Veteran Instincts, Terminators, Duty and Honour, try to use with your Inferno Squad if you're using them to move around the board and capture objectives. Your Terminators are going to be good at moving in to then clear objectives for you, but your Inferno Squad are going to be the ones that are then going to get in, capture it, clear them, wipe them, and keep in cover as well while they're at it. In terms of your kind of final bit of synergy, the Librarian Terminator synergy actually works really, really well here, and that's the cast Veil of Time on the Terminators. Sustained hits, one rule generates extra hits for them, and it's especially effective when you're firing your Stormbolter or using your Power Fist and melee. So although Captain Octavius is the melee fighter, the warlord, the leader, in actual fact, in a lot of cases, the Librarian is actually the better unit to lead and be bodyguarded by your Terminators. Octavius himself is a bit of a powerhouse and can act as a solo operator on the table without too much issue. Now, an example of the Librarian Terminator synergy would be, a Terminator, a Stormbolter fires 4 shots because they're at close range, they've got their rapid fire 2 on there, 4 possible attacks. Again, if you then roll with unmodified 6s on all of those, you're going to get double the number of attacks there, right? You're going to end up getting additional hits on those 6s, and that's going to then give you 8 possible hits, 8 possible wounds, and therefore, if you think your squad's carrying, 4, well, actually, the Librarian has a Stormbolter too, so that's 5 sets of 4, 40, and then go to 80. 80 possible hits in one round of firing if you rolled 6s on everything. Unlikely, however, would be very impressive if it was to happen, and obviously could dish out a lot of hurt on your opponent. Now, the Inferno Squad, again, they're using them really for board control. Use the Pyre Blasters to then control choke points, deter enemy charges, and that torrent rule means that they automatically hit an Overwatch, as I've said. It makes them ideal for protecting objectives, choke points, and just acting as a bit of a nuisance for advancing enemy forces. Place them near objectives that are likely to be contested. Keep them close to Captain Octavius if possible, and he will grant them leadership support as well. So finally, we're now going to talk about just a bit of tactical flow turn by turn. So in turn 1, you're really looking to establish your positioning just like any other turn. Move your Inferno Squad towards midfield objectives, keep Captain Octavius and the Librarian in cover, or prepare for a turn 2 deep strike. Focus on positioning and controlling key areas of the board. In turn 2, bring in the deep strike and pressure once you're sure and you know roughly where your opponent is moving towards. Drop Terminators in the Librarian where they can apply pressure. Use Oath of Moment to focus fire on a critical enemy unit and engage in melee if possible. And then from turn 3 onwards, it's really a case of securing objectives to rack up those victory points, objectives, and eliminate threats. Push forward with Captain Octavius and Terminators to clear enemies off the objectives, and use stratagems to hold ground and maximise damage output. Now, one thing I've not mentioned in this video as well, in terms of Captain Octavius, if and when he picks one of his key kind of abilities, one of the secondary objectives for the Space Marines is actually, I think, called Wrath of the Emperor. I may have called that wrong, apologies if I have, I don't have the sheet in front of me. But from that, he actually gains 2 victory points in a turn if he kills an enemy unit or enemy model. So, assuming Captain Octavius is always in the fray, firing or fighting or doing whatever he does, then you are going to rack up victory points as the game progresses, with the potential to be racking them up from turn 2, if not even turn 1 at earliest opportunity, if you get lucky and you position your forces well enough. So that was our tactical flow by turn. So finally, if we're then talking in terms of key synergies, there are a couple we could consider. Captain Octavius and Terminators are going to be melee powerhouses with precision targeting and rerolls. Librarian Tantus with the Terminators will be extra hits from psychic buffs, and that then makes the combination deadly in both shooting and melee. The Inferno Squad and their synergy with objectives, they can hold, they can clear, and they automatically hit on Overwatch threats. So that is a very useful thing to consider if you're starting to think about your tactics. And then Oath of Moment stratagems will focus on high value targets, and then you're using those stratagems to boost the survivability and damage at key moments in the gameplay. By combining these deployment and synergy strategies, you can maximise the effectiveness of Strikeforce Octavius, dominate objectives, and crush your enemies with precision strikes and durable units. So that really wraps up our kind of deep dive into Strikeforce Octavius. If you like durable elite units with tactical precision, this combat patrol is for you. Also, I am quite the advocate of the rule of cool. If you like the looks of the combat patrol, go with it. See what happens, you will learn to use it, you will learn to love it, but ultimately, play with what you like. Right? Play with what models look cool to you, because ultimately, some look cool, others, you might go, nah, not for me. But these videos will aim to just give you an overview of each box set and what is in there and what could be, what they could be used for. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below, as I really appreciate the feedback. This is obviously our first time, and yeah, we'll see where we go from there. If anyone wants specific content produced, I'm happy to kind of look into different things, because at the moment we're still a bit fluid in terms of where we want to go with this. Yeah, until next time, remember, the Emperor protects.